Hey Jay.
Hey.
So this is going to be an interesting ride, this episode.
Yeah, I think so.
Like so much so, I know what we're talking about, but I don't even know the title. Like I'm hoping as we talk in the episode, we'll figure out the title. I mean, by the time you're hearing this,
Right.
it's been labeled.
Right. I had the same thought. Like, what is this even going to be called?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this episode idea came from something that people keep asking me based on something that we talked about in a previous episode.
Right.
And so this is how one of the scenarios went.
Okay.
Somebody came up to me and said, you know how you were talking about that delay that you have when somebody says something and you're like, before you really react?
What episode was that in?
I don't even remember.
Same.
Yeah.
I can't either.
Okay.
I remember you saying it.
So I said that we were discussing that and like reacting and like how there's like a delay for some people and not. And it was sort of in passing.
Yes. It was like a side note.
It was probably in a tangent. We do a lot of those. Okay. Yes. And so people say, this person came up to me and said, can you please explain how you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I did this. It was in person, so I couldn't like buffer.
Right.
I was like, no.
Nope, you're on your own. Good luck.
I actually can't because I froze for words.
Mm-hmm.
I could say it to you and you know what I mean.
Yes.
But I couldn't explain the concept.
Right.
Of reacting and not instantly taking something personal. And also, from the few other people that asked me the question, I realized that like I don't really think I represented what I meant correctly because we'll get into it, but like that, I don't think that actually happens. Like I'm not actually not feeling anything.
No.
So.
You're managing.
Yeah. So what this episode is about is when you're in a situation where somebody says something to you or something is upsetting in front of you, whether it's on social media or it's in person or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you get through that moment and like at the end of it feel like pretty good about how you handled it?
Yeah, it's sort of like an emotional responsiveness or like an energetic responsiveness.
Yes.
Whereas if you don't have, I think what people want is what you described.
Yes.
Because if you don't have the management of that response,
yes,
you're then triggered.
Yes.
You're triggered, right? Because you're not in control of it.
Yeah. So like, for example, if you're somewhere and somebody says something insulting to you, my first reaction that you're going to see outwardly is interesting.
It's not my first reaction.
Okay. But other people's first reaction is like to cry or to punch them or to yell back or to freeze or whatever. And so people, I think, heard me say that and thought, I want her reaction.
Correct.
So there is stuff you can do. And we're going to talk all about that. But what I think we're talking about here, the word I could get the closest to what I feel like is happening is autonomy.
Yeah.
So like the ability to kind of govern yourself.
Yes.
And like, this is how I'm going to react. Because what I think might have been misheard or misrepresented in the way that I was talking is that I'm still feeling all of it.
Yeah, you're not like turning off and turning back on again.
I'm still offended. I'm still mad. I still want to punch you. I still want to whatever, hug you, whatever the thing I still want to do. But there's a created delay.
Yes, like a buffer.
Yes, that has to do with an autonomy that I both created and happened upon.
Yep.
Based on my design.
Well, correct. But I think that the problem is that unfortunately we are often saying to our listeners, like, there isn't one protocol for this.
No.
We're not trying to sell you like
our 10-step program.
Buy this plan and you'll have emotional autonomy in every situation. Like this is dependent, like as all intuitive things.
Yes.
It's dependent on your trauma,
Yes.
your experience, your clairs,
Your beliefs.
your neurodiversity or neurotypicalness, like
how you were raised, like all
like the wiring of
these.
your brain. So like
Yes.
how you find emotional autonomy
Yes.
is going to be different than how I find it.
100%. And I think that's why it was hard to like conceptualize
Right.
this episode at
Right.
first, because I was like, it would be like really neat with a nice little bow if I could be like, here are the 10 steps
Yep.
to have more autonomy
Mm-hmm.
when you're dealing with people.
Yep.
That sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't make sense, because even I'm going to tell you how I do some of it, but
Right.
the biggest part of this discussion is like understanding your reaction, because
Right.
mine is not yours.
Exactly.
And mine is not better than yours, or
No,
more
it's different.
advanced, or
Right.
more autonomous, or
Right.
more anything.
Right.
It's just the way that I react.
Right. And the way your system works is that you would be very aware of every step and every reason and every purpose.
Yes.
Whereas when I'm autonomous in my system,
Yes.
I have no idea what's happening.
Exactly.
My claircognizance is just like formulating a protocol and then we're following it out.
Yes. And so in this industry, there is way too much preachy, follow these 10 steps, I do it better than you bullshit.
Well, and that's ego and that's capitalism.
And it won't work. It's going to let
No.
you down. It doesn't make sense.
No, because you're going to try to squeeze yourself into someone else's procedure and it's not going to work for your system.
Yeah, and you're going to get frustrated.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
some
of it might work. You might buy someone's 10-step plan and like steps 4 and 6 might work.
And if you have enough autonomy over yourself.
Right.
And you have enough awareness and like self-regulation, I guess, that you can go, oh, I'm not a failure if all these steps don't work. I'm going to listen to this and take from what I'm going to use.
Right, and adapt it.
Then that makes sense. But it's not presented that way.
Mm-mm.
So if that's not your natural thing, which we're going to talk about why it's not and why it is, then that's going to be way harder for you. And you're going to feel like you're failing all the time. And the way that I do it is not the way for you to do it.
Right.
But there are clues and discussion involved.
Right.
And I think there's 2 reasons why I feel qualified to give some advice and discuss this with you.
Okay.
The first one is that I've studied human behavior
Correct.
like a crazy person for the last 15 years.
You have.
Okay. The second is that for me, the way that I was programmed from a young age and conditioned was this real understanding or feeling that I was different than everybody else.
Right.
So I have always had a very heightened experience of what this other person is going through in their perspective, because I had this false assumption that mine was going to be weird and wrong.
Right. And you created like a filter.
Yes.
Right.
So by the time I have become 40 years old.
Right. Happy birthday.
Thank you. There's been enough practice at it.
Right.
That it's easy for me.
Correct.
It happens very quickly. So what you're seeing, you might go like, oh, how does she do that? It's not a trick. It's just a combination of like intelligence and trauma.
Well, and like self-awareness.
Yes.
Like not only have you've also done work on understanding yourself.
Yeah.
And like how and why you react to things. Like if you're someone listening to this and you want to know how to do this, but you don't understand your own triggers or your own traumas or your vows that you've created, it's going to be a lot harder.
It's going to be a whole lot harder. It depends on where you are in your journey of autonomy and
self-discovery.
Yes, but also in your journey of intuition.
Correct.
And being comfortable with your intuition.
Right.
Because like you're saying, like with your claircognizance, I think you've always operated with it, but I don't think until the last 5 years have you become really aware of how it operates.
Correct.
In a way that you can feel really powerful in it.
Right. Well, I was trying to create systems in my life based like on being very aware and very intentional.
Yes.
But with my claircognizance,
it's the opposite.
It's the opposite. Like I have to trust. I have to know that like my intuition knows what to do and to follow my own lead.
Yes. And like you're not going to pre-think something out all the time.
No.
And so the further you are in that journey, the more of this it's just going to click.
Right. And if feels really hard right now, keep doing like what we always call like the work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And then this will get easier as you do more work because you'll start to understand more about yourself.
Yes. And that's exactly why I wanted this episode to be a discussion of the things, not a do these things. Because if it's a discussion, it will hit you where you are.
Yes.
Where you are is the perfect place to be. Wherever it is that you're
Always.
entering here,
Right.
this episode, life, wherever.
Right.
Perfect.
Right.
You're there.
If you're hearing this episode in 2025.
It doesn't matter.
It's okay.
2050.
Right.
Welcome.
Right.
Hopefully we're still alive.
I will be, yeah, absolutely.
I hope you checked. Okay.
Definitely.
So like just be where you are because we're just going to discuss it. So if it's like, oh, what if this is too far advanced for me? It's not, because we're going to talk about how humans operate.
Right.
And we're going to discuss how we operate for reference, but you're going to be able to plug stuff in.
Yeah.
At least that's my hope for yourself.
Yeah. So take everything that we're saying and like adapt it to your own life, your own energetic body.
Yeah.
And where you are in the journey.
Exactly. Okay. So I want to just first explain the delay that people are asking me about how they can emulate.
Yes.
So what I want to explain is that the delay or the little pause that happens is not me going, wait a minute, let me formulate the perfect response.
Right.
It is actually, if I am really honest with you about it, there is autonomy to it for sure.
Yep.
But it comes from an overwhelm of information in my system.
Yep.
Because even though it looks like I'm not reacting emotionally, I am the most emotional person. I lead emotionally. Like, I think everyone has a lead. They're either lead intellectually or they lead emotionally. Okay, I lead emotionally.
Yep.
So do you. Everything makes us feel all the feelings. Everything. All the time.
Right.
There isn't something that happens to you in your day that doesn't trigger a boatload of emotions in your body. That's how we operate. That's how a lot of intuitive people operate.
Right. Because intuition is emotion.
Exactly. So you're sort of remember, intuition is a spectrum. Intelligence is a spectrum, right? They're all,
everything is a spectrum.
We've decided.
Right.
Yeah.
I declare it.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Right.
On the long list of imaginary t-shirts we have for the podcast.
Right.
So in that spectrum somewhere, the further you're dialed intuitively, the more flooded by emotion you are anytime anything happens.
Yep.
Now, you have this like ability for the things that feel pretty emotionally regular that are like occurring for you. You just, the same neural pathways fire and you just kind of follow the formulas.
Right. Yep.
Right? So you're just kind of doing that. But then something happens in your day that's outside of that makes you feel more than quote unquote usual in a situation. And it could be a confrontation. It could be a hard conversation. It could be, there could be a, Karen in the wilds that you're around.
I was just thinking of that. Like, how do you react?
Yeah. So when those things happen, there's a flood of even more information.
Right.
So for me, I'm flooded with my own shit, but I'm also flooded with yours.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
And so if if it's one other person, if it's 10 other people, everyone, all of it happening, I'm flooded with all of that information.
Right.
So the pause that looks like a diabolical mastermind is actually a moment of, I can't, this is too much for my system. I need to pause to take it all in.
Yeah, you're reading the analytics.
Yes. Right. That's the only part that I think is different, is that I'm then going, I'm taking that pause to decide my response.
Right. But I think through your trauma that you mentioned, like growing up feeling like the weirdo.
Yes.
I think you've become a pro at managing your face.
Masking.
Right.
I think a lot of people can relate to that though, for whatever reason, for whatever trauma. Listen.
No, masking isn't just for autism and ADHD and things like that.
No, or for the super intuitive. It's anybody. I don't think I know, especially a woman who isn't an expert masker.
Correct.
Sometimes to her own fault and detriment.
Right.
Yes. So it's just that. And listen, the trauma and the like skill set, like the gift that I was given,
Yep.
like the good parts of learning that
Mhm.
and the trauma are so mixed together
Right.
that there's no point
hard
in
to say.
separating them.
Right,
I just say thank you to all of it for that ability.
Right.
But there's also this is going to sound strange, but bear
Mhm.
with me. There's a gift in growing up very insecure.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to downplay it.
No.
I'm saying I did.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to be like positive Pollyanna. Everything's a gift. Everything's wonderful. I'm not.
Right.
But there's a hyper aware state
Yep.
of how everyone's going to receive
Mhm.
everything that you do
Right.
when you are, for the majority of your life, very insecure.
Right.
So that's also here.
Mhm.
So before you're like, Master, teach me, I would like you to know
Right.
that it comes from a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
It's not
Like suffering.
I didn't
Yeah.
study with monks.
No.
I just existed in a patriarchal
You're
society.
trying to survive. Right. Exactly.
So I just think that's important because
Yeah.
your reaction, whatever it is, whether it's an instant fly off the handle or the thing that I hear a lot of people say that they don't like is an instant cry. They find that to be very vulnerable and embarrassing. It's all based on a combo of all of this stuff. And the good news is that you don't need to go weed through what was trauma, what was a skill set, what was a gift, what was a curse.
Right.
It doesn't matter anymore at this point.
Right.
You want to weed through that shit, high five, go for it.
Right.
But here, it doesn't matter.
No.
It's just an awareness here.
Yep.
Okay. Your pause, your instant reaction, your whatever is based on so many things. But if I can start you on one path that I think will help you understand, it's the first thing that I look for when I'm dealing with someone where there's some sort of confrontation.
Okay.
Especially if it's a new person. If I already know you, I already know the answer to this.
Okay.
I'm willing to bet you also have figured this part out.
Probably.
Okay. So there is a belief that your ego has that is either it's safer to rely on yourself for what to do, or it's safer to rely on others for what to do.
Okay.
Okay. You and I are the self-reliant.
Yes.
Okay. And again, there is both gift and trauma in this. There is both like being raised in a way that we want you to be independent and supported.
Yep.
And there's also trauma of like being raised with like a brother who has a very serious illness. Like, so there's all kinds of things like, and I'm just sharing that because like, it doesn't matter which one. It's just what your ego chose for safety.
Right, exactly.
So as a self-reliant person, I believe that it is safer for me to deal with and react to based on what I think and what I feel in a situation right away than to get the heck out of there and let somebody else deal with it or to ask somebody's advice or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. You are that way too.
Yep.
About the other half of the population believe that they are safer if they're not the one making that decision, if they're not the one that, so they got to get out of Dodge because they think like, I don't trust myself for this. I need to rely on others for this.
Right.
Now, these are both also spectrums. I have been on the, and so have you, on the side of the spectrum of relying on yourself that's really unhealthy.
Correct. Yes.
There's also a side of the spectrum of relying on others too much that's very unhealthy. Honestly, like somewhere close to the middle is probably the
best,
the nicest spot.
Right.
But the middle for me is different than the middle for you.
Right. I also think that I am, just as an example for the listener, that like I am obviously lean towards self-reliance.
Yeah.
But I also have issues, my own personal makeup, right, is that I have taught myself that I need to be accommodating.
Wait, you?
It's true. It's true. So
yes,
sometimes I'll know what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And probably actually masterminding that it's happening.
Yeah.
But be working to let it read that I'm not taking control.
You keep yourself self-reliant, but you become like the Wizard of Oz, like the man behind the curtain.
Right. So I'm like moving the pieces and the parts.
Yes.
Right.
So, but that also brings up a good point in that because this is ego,
right,
it isn't actually super consistent.
Correct.
So you could have an area of your life that you don't believe this.
Right.
Okay. So there could be an example I see. I don't experience, but think that I wish I did a little more. But I witness in the others.
Right.
Is that people who are very self-reliant, sometimes when they're entering into doing something new, learning a new thing, starting a new job, will, for a period of time, act as though they need to rely on everyone else.
Yes.
No self-trust until they get there.
Right.
There's a lack of autonomy until they get to the other side of that.
Until you can deem yourself the expert.
I know enough now.
Right.
Yeah. I don't experience that.
Mm-hmm.
I know I don't know all of it, but
Mhm.
I'm still going to need to run everything through my filter to decide what to do.
Right. Same.
So neither is better or worse.
Right.
It's literally just how you operate. And it's just knowing that's how you operate.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the very first thing I'm clocking in someone that I have to speak to, especially if it's some kind of like confrontation or issue, is which one are you?
Great point.
Very easy to see.
Yep.
Very easy to see.
Yep.
Because your reaction in how like the problem comes up, what you do in reaction to the problem tells me. And actually, most of the time your body language will tell me before you'll say anything vocally.
Okay.
So people who are like the self-reliant people tend to lean in at a problem, and people who are the people who trust others tend to lean out.
Yeah.
So
step back.
as soon, like if someone's like, okay, I'm going to tell you something big, you'll watch some people go, okay. And then there's you and I, and we're like, yes, I'm going to point all my chakras at you. Tell me everything.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
That is the first thing you're going to clock.
Yep.
Now, if you are a person who believes other people know better than you all the time, it doesn't mean that there's anything flawed about you.
No.
It just means that you have less on the spectrum of autonomy in this area.
Right.
Okay. You can have more, but there's still nothing wrong with that belief.
No, and that's actually good information to have, because if you want more autonomy, you now know where to look.
Yes. Now, if you fall more on the spectrum in the way that I do, and you realize you put a little too much of that autonomy on yourself, you don't actually allow others to sometimes give to the mix.
Right.
To like let them influence you. I remember my mother as a kid going, you just have to listen to what other people say and then make a decision.
Right.
Because I would be a little kid being like, I'm not interested in your thoughts. Teacher of the subject, I'm not interested in your thoughts on this matter.
I'm the expert now.
I know everything. Right.
Gotcha.
So there's a different, there's a push and pull to all sides of it.
Right.
I have to learn to be less that way. And some people need to learn to be more that way to feel comfortable in these situations.
Right.
Okay.
And that's going to read as controlling also. If you're dealing with someone who you think is super controlling,
Yes.
it's because they feel like they have to be in charge to be safe.
Yes. I believe you and I had this come up in a discussion where the ego likes control, but your intuition likes power.
Correct.
And your ego misconstrues control as power all the time.
Because the intuition reads power as actually surrendering.
Yes.
Like trusting, letting go.
Yes.
Not surrendering like defeat.
No.
But surrendering like allowing and
like
and
this
trusting
is happening.
This is the process.
It's like kind of like, let me realign to this reality.
Like,
let me realign to this truth. I'm still relying on myself.
Right.
I'm just realigning the way I was going. I'm not going to resist so hard anymore because it's not working.
And in this moment of confrontation, it reads to me as like me being like a little bit clairaudient, like
just a little.
Like when I think about situations like that where I'm having to allow,
yes,
and I'm having to have my ego let go. It's like that in Hamilton when Aaron Burr is like, okay, so we're doing this. Like that's what I hear in my head is like, okay, so we're doing this. Like,
yes.
Oh, so this confrontation is happening. I can't avoid it.
Yes.
I would love my flight response would love to just get the hell out of here and avoid this and like let this Karen in the wild be wild. But I've decided that like something has to happen. Like, okay, so we're doing this.
Well, you also have a belief that you're the right person to deal with it.
Right.
That like I don't trust everyone else in this room to deal with it. I trust myself to deal with it. Which is flawed. Right? Like
sometimes I am the right guy for the job.
Absolutely. But like also if you and I are somewhere and there's like a robbery, we're in our heads we're like, we gotta fix this.
Right.
We can't wait for the police to get here. We're gonna have to go in and I'm gonna be like, damn, I wish I watched that video a little bit more about how when someone points a gun at you to be like If you couldn't see that, I just turned the gun around on the other person. Right? Like,
And then-
literally.
right. But then this is where like other things in your life come into play. Like, do you have a strong sense of social justice? Do you have a strong
Yes.
sense that like you have to advocate for people? Like that's
Yes.
what happens with me. I'm like,
Yes.
oh no, I don't want to do this, but I've gotta.
In my head, it's like eventually everyone in this room is going to turn and look at me and go, what do we do?
Right.
So I better have a plan.
Right.
Okay. And as much as I know that's delusional, it happens a lot.
Well, but for me, again, this is like about how you're built. Like you're built with rejection. I'm built with abandonment.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, I have to have a plan in place right now.
Yeah.
Because if no one else takes the lead,
yeah,
I can't let this bad thing happen. I can't leave this person.
Yes.
I can't abandon them. I have to like step up for them. Like I would want someone to step up for me.
So you override that instinct to flee.
Right. To be like too loud, don't be too pushy, don't be so assertive,
Yes.
Jamie. Like
Yes.
that, those like people pleaser voices, they get overridden.
Yes.
By that sense of like doing the right thing.
Yes. So that understanding that voice, understanding that process before you enter into those places makes it so when you're in them, you have a lot more of that, what people are reading as like a pause. Again, it's not a quiet pause.
No.
But it is a pause where you're all that stuff runs through fast because you've already thought it out.
Right.
You already know that if you're in a situation where it's like a matter of social justice or standing up for somebody, you're going to enter in and help.
Right.
There's no way you're not. You already know that. So you're not fighting the battle when it's happening. You're surrendering.
Right.
Because this is an area that I already know I have a value that, like, my values say I must enter.
Exactly. I can't let this go.
Yes. So this is the point. Like, the more things you have thought out and know about yourself and identified in yourself, when you're in even a conversation where somebody's like, I'm mad at you because of this, instead of feeling like you're going to turn into a puddle.
Right.
Because
or get defensive.
Or get defensive or cry or whatever. You go, oh, this is one of those situations. And you kind of just pull up that formula. I know I'm speaking very logically, but when you are very dialed into feelings and emotion and intuition, the way to keep yourself alive in this world is to use a lot of logical systems.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people think like, oh my God, you must just always be in logic because you love spreadsheets and formulas and things. And the funny thing is that by default, no.
Right.
I have to create that.
Right.
Right. So it's like the same thing. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably an intuitive, emotional person.
I would say so.
So I'm saying if you sit and think out these formulas, and you might not use the word formula, you might use something else. In those situations, it gives you the autonomy to go, wait.
Right.
Okay. Even if you've already said something you regret, you still you can still rewire it, right? Like you can still shift it.
You also don't have to wait for the shit to hit the fan.
No.
Either. Like if you you can do it alone, but if you have a friend like Heather, like it's helpful. But like you can look back on situations where you didn't have the pause, where you wanted the pause, and you can, if you like look at it and sort of dissect it a little bit, you can see what was at play.
Yes.
You can say like, oh, I said that. Why did I say that? Well, because I felt this way. Well, why did I feel that way? Like you can work that through.
Exactly.
And you can see what's motivating you. The trick is that your brain is so fast.
Yes.
That these neurons are firing in seconds. You're making these choices and having these reactions. So if you're not aware of them, they're happening automatically. Well,
that's an awesome point, because a lot of people, when we talk about this, will bring up fight, flight, freeze, fawn.
Right.
And they'll go, but I'm this. So I'm stuck this. And what I think people have a little trouble understanding, and is also very hard to explain, is that fight, flight, freeze, fawn are ego responses.
Yes.
So they are reactions.
That's like a response that your system is dysregulated.
Yes. But what I'm saying is, I know they feel intuitive and inherent to your system, and in a way they are, but they're not intuition.
No,
they're not
like
an action. They're also shiftable.
Yes.
To a point. Now listen, I'm not trying to say like all psychologists don't know what they're talking about. They do know what they're talking
Yeah.
about, but there isn't a lot of study here on like, well, how do I shift in that response?
Mm-hmm.
But when people talk about a fight, for example, that's ours, both of us.
Yep.
When I'm in a situation and the need to like fight, I can still have the fight come into
out.
my body,
Right.
but not choose it or choose it differently. Like to me, we'll talk about this too, but like my best tactic when you need a second to pause to do whatever is to ask a question.
Yep.
Ask a question.
Buy
Don't
yourself
accuse.
some time.
Ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what you mean by that?
Right.
You seem really emotionally charged. Talk to me about that. Like give it back to the other person for a moment and give yourself a second. It's also a great diffuser.
Right.
Because you're not combating. You're asking to understand the person and see them more. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, if you have someone in front of you who's upset, it's because they don't feel seen and heard.
Well, and because they're also having a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. So but again, I just want to say to your point, like those feel intuitive.
Yes, but
they're a reaction to fear. They're a reaction to threat and danger.
Yes,
which is all ego. Ego is, and not like the cocky ego, but like the ego, like your body thinks it's in danger.
It's trying to keep you safe. Your ego's not a bad guy. It's a good guy.
It's trying to keep you alive.
Yeah.
So like, is it instinctual? Yes. But it's reacting to fear, which is not intuition. That's the difference.
Yes. Where like, can you control your emotions and how you feel emotionally when something comes in? No.
Right.
Can you control how you react with those emotions outwardly?
Right.
Yes. It's the same here. Can you control that your fear response has been activated?
Right.
No.
Right.
Can you control what you do with that information in your body? Yes.
With time, with experience, with introspection. Yes, you can. You can.
Yes.
Can you do it 100% of the time every time?
Absolutely fucking not.
No.
You are going to fuck up. You are
or
going
something so scary is going to happen to you that it all flies out the window.
Yes. It depends on what you put with everything.
Right.
Like I try to think I want to go back to the fight, flight, or freeze in a second. So I'll like circle back to this one too. But I like to think in every situation, the thought, and I have to pull it up. And sometimes it takes me a couple minutes to get the thought to my head. But I like to think the thought because it's going to set me in the right state. As soon as I think it, what is my best response to get through this? Okay. And then suddenly my whole being shifts into what that is.
Right.
And it takes you away from taking it personal.
It's interesting.
You're still going to take it personal, but you're not going to react with the personal.
Right.
Okay.
The question my whoever posits to myself is, how do I want to feel after this?
Yes.
And it takes me out of this like do or die, living by every nanosecond.
Yes.
Like gotta stay alive and face the threat. It's like, how do I want to feel about this in like when I'm telling someone about it?
Yes.
Do I want to say that I like, flipped over a chair somewhere?
Maybe.
And, with my own self, you're helping me to be like, no, it's okay to be mad.
Yes.
Like the wording for me is always like, you should have a perfect response to everything all the time. So if I show any emotion, that's bad.
Right.
Right. So it's like some emotion is good. Some reactiveness is good. But like, do I want to be telling the story that like I lit a Taco Bell on fire because I was so mad?
Right. I mean, I would enjoy the story, but I know exactly what you mean. Like,
it's like taking
there's a reason, jokes aside, you don't want to be flipping the chair because which person is more powerful? The person angry flipping a chair or the person looking at you, their breathing's calm and they're going, I'm angry.
Right. Exactly.
You tell me which one is fucking scarier.
I'm so upset with you right now.
How, like, you're in control of your reaction to your own emotions. And that is an incredibly powerful person. Right. And it's why it's intimidating. It's why it's easier to then navigate when you put yourself in that state, even if you have to fake it a little bit at first. But it's the anger itself is not a bad guy. It's the controlled response that you're looking for so that you get yourself to answer that question of how do I want to feel after this? Like probably like satisfied and peaceful. Right. I want to get to peace. Yeah. My thing that I'm always managing is some part of my ego is going to want to be right.
Yeah, same.
And so does the other person. And I'm never going to be right. And it's never going to give me any peace. It's
Right.
not helpful to be right ever. So there's always that little reminder. As soon as I start hearing something come out of my mouth that is to get the other person to admit I'm right, I go, no.
It's nice to be right, though.
It's lovely. But here's the thing. I already am.
Right.
But if I'm entering into a battle with
Right.
you about which one of us is right, we're both leaving pissed.
Definitely.
And neither of us think the other person's right.
Right.
Nobody wins. It's a battle you're going to lose 100% of the time.
Yep.
And when you go to answer that question, like, how do I want to feel at the end? If you were in a right-wrong battle, you're going to feel like shit no matter how it goes. Even if I give you a crushing blow of defeat because I can, I can go back and forth with someone. No problem. Let's debate this. I'll win. I'm skilled. I'm going to feel like shit at the end if I was trying to be right.
Exactly.
It doesn't give me anything.
Exactly.
So it's these kinds of pieces of knowledge. Okay. Now, if you are a fight person like myself, like you, again, these are also spectrums, everybody.
Yeah.
So your reaction, you might be like, I think I'm a fight, but I react a little bit differently. Normal.
Right.
Fine. Good. Okay. If you are a fight person, your moment, your breath, your creation of pause is to use the information that you have to formulate your response.
Right.
Okay? Because your response is fight.
Right.
Okay? I know you're not fighting, but you're solving, dealing with, getting all the information, understanding what's going on are all fight responses.
Yes.
Don't hear fight like throwing a punch.
Correct.
Or entering into like a debate. Like that's literally
it's just
fight.
like addressing.
Addressing is a better word.
Right.
Yes. I don't think it sounds as good, like address, flight, freeze, but fight is that.
Fight. Right. It's facing something.
Yes.
Right.
So the pause is created to strategize the response. If you are freeze, you're going to pause automatically, but the first pause is not going to help you.
Right.
You're not formulating here. You just need your system to kind of reboot for a moment.
Exactly.
Okay? So you're going to have to buy yourself even a little bit more time. Okay.
Yep.
Totally fine. Do it. Ask a question. That's for everybody.
Right.
Okay? If you're flight, every part of your body is going to try to get you the hell out of there.
Yep.
And what I see happen with flight people a lot is that they give in immediately, compromise their own integrity, their own feelings. They never, they leave, and that question that you have, like, how do I want to feel after, is for them, it's the worst. But they prioritize getting out of there so much that they will just give in and compromise themselves.
I used to be a big flight person, and I would forever be like, why did I just agree to that? And I would be so mad at myself and furious, so mad. And I'd be like, because I realized it was because I couldn't be in that conversation. I couldn't say no. I didn't feel powerful enough to say no.
Yeah, and the safest option for you felt like getting out. Not
just
dealing.
end this conversation.
Yes.
I'll deal with the rest later.
Yes.
Right.
That is very important information to know about yourself.
Exactly.
Okay? So here's the thing. If you are a flight response person, just stay for a second. Okay? Do your pause, whatever. But then get out. Yeah. You don't have to deal with every issue and every confrontation and every problem in every single moment.
You don't have to solve every aspect.
No. If someone comes up to you, I'm just going to use this example because it's the thing that, like, if you're like, what could someone say to you that would make your whole body enter into a clench? It's, I'm so mad at you, or you hurt my feelings. To me, I'm just like,
you hurt my feelings would be
tough. Everything else, I screwed up, fine. But like, oh my God, I hurt your feelings, or you're mad at me.
Right.
What have I done? Where have I gone wrong?
Right.
Like, that's the clenchiest moment for me. Okay. So if that happens to you, if that's the example, and someone says that to you and you go, I hear you. It's really important to me that we discuss this.
Yep.
I don't feel like I can do it right now.
Right.
But it's very important. Can we talk tonight on the phone?
Yeah.
Perfectly fine.
Right.
Okay? Now, you can't control the other person's response. I don't know how they're going to do with that information.
Yep.
But I'm going to tell you right now, if you're me or you're Jamie, who's fight, first of all, it's going to drive us fucking crazy because we're telling
Fix
you
it.
because we want to fix it.
Right.
Okay. But if that's your response, or maybe you can hear it for a minute and then you can't hear it anymore because you're losing your ability to feel like you can sit there safely.
Right.
Exit.
Yep.
Just return. Schedule the return.
You know what's another factor here that I think we need to address is it's a social factor, a societal factor, in the fact that no one is taught how to speak the way you were just speaking.
Right.
Like growing up.
Right.
Maybe now with like the sort of the rise of gentle parenting, I think
yeah.
But
anyone our age.
No. A little younger than us, mid-millennials and older.
Yep.
We never had modeling of conversations like,
no,
this is really important to me.
Yeah.
But I need a minute. Can I come back? It's
I need to go gather myself.
Right.
Or I need to talk about this another time.
And I think maybe a way to frame it is that there's some overlap in that kind of speak with corporate speak.
Right.
Let's put a pin in this.
Yeah. Right.
Don't say that if someone's arguing with you. But the idea of that, being able to just not react.
Yes.
But actually see it as a conversation. We're taught that confrontation is a fight. We're not taught that it's a conversation.
Well, this is a sentence I say all the time, and I feel like I sound like an annoying white man when I say it, but it is true. Is that literally every single human interaction is a negotiation.
Yes.
Okay? Literally, every single one is a negotiation of everything.
Right.
And we're not taught how to negotiate, which is what you're saying.
No, it's that parent, it's that superior inferiority dynamic. As a parent, we weren't taught we can't speak, we can't talk back.
Right.
We have to take the punishment, we have to take the discipline.
Yes.
So we don't know how to so then we grow up to be adults who don't know. When I hear you saying that, I know there are people listening to this conversation and this podcast and thinking I don't know how to fucking talk like that.
Right.
5 years ago, I would have been okay, great. I can't, when I'm feeling that emotional and that upset, I can't talk like that.
Yes.
But that's because no one ever taught us that.
Exactly.
And you have taught yourself that.
Yes. I have taught myself that because humans never made sense to me.
Right.
You had to
learn the language.
I did. I could read energy.
Right.
And the energy of the person was never matching what somebody was saying.
Right.
And so when that would happen, it would confuse me as a kid all the time.
Right.
And so I'm saying this because I think a lot of people will relate. You either decided in that moment that you're never going to understand people and you kind of opted out.
Right.
Hi, I see you. We're the same, just different sides of the same coin.
Right.
Or you were like, well, I have got to freaking navigate this.
Right.
So I have to develop this ability.
Right.
I have to figure this out. So I have to figure out what the language should be because I'm not hearing anyone doing it.
Right.
And it was trial and error.
Yep.
Listen, you're going to go into these situations and you're not going to nail it. Or you're going to say the perfect sentence and the person's not going to take it well.
No, because they're so dysregulated that it doesn't matter what you say. Right.
But even as the fight person who wants to talk about it now, if you told me this is important to me, I just am not in a state that I can talk about it right now, I will respect that.
No, I would be super frustrated and then I would take a breath and go, fine.
But I also know that you're not going to just give in.
Right.
You're not going to just yell at me, that you're excusing yourself. I know, even though I am frustrated, I know you're doing that for me as much as it is for you.
Right.
So, okay. Because it's going to go better.
Right.
I'm going to be annoyed about it, but that's okay. I'm allowed to be annoyed and you're allowed to be annoyed that I'm talking about it. Right. But if you don't know this about yourself, think about in your work, in your relationships, in your friendships. If you don't know, I mean, we've talked about this before, but I'm the kind of person that if I love you, if you're somebody who matters to me, I'm going to tell you if you did something that upset me.
Yes.
Because that's what you do for people you love, because I want to fix it.
Right.
Because I trust you.
Yeah.
if I don't know you or don't care about you or don't happen to like you and you do it, I'm not bothering.
Right.
Because I don't care about fixing it. I don't care about our connection.
Doesn't matter as much.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
But some people read that as confrontation and criticism and picking apart, and which is understandable. But you have to know this about other people, and you have to read this in other people.
Agreed.
Okay. We got to take a quick break.
Okay.
And come back and talk some more.
Yeah. Okay, this week was supposed to be last week's.
Oh. Because we interrupted our previously obsessed segment for a Stonehenge comment.
For your Stonehenge, yeah. But what I was going to say then, so like if you're listening in chronological order, like in real time, it'll make more sense. Sorry if you're not.
Yeah.
Again, if you're listening in 2025.
2050, welcome.
But I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
With myself.
I'm obsessed with yourself too. Okay.
What I was going to say last week was that we had a revisit episode. 2 weeks ago, we had a revisit.
Yes.
Right? Which is like when we replay something.
Yes.
And it was my fault that we had the revisit.
Yes. I mean, your fault isn't the right way to frame it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's what we're talking about, is that like we were supposed to record.
Yes.
And we didn't.
Right.
Because I actually had the courage to be like, I can't record this week.
You spoke up for yourself. You were like, I don't feel well.
I feel awful. I can't do it. Like I basically used a sick day. For the podcast.
Yes. But you were like, I'm so sorry.
I was like, listen, I'm really sorry.
Yeah,
and you were like, what? And I did need like a little prodding from Billy. Like Billy was like my husband. He was
Good job, Billy.
He looked at me and was like, I was like, I'm leaving. I dropped the kids off at school. I came back home.
Yeah.
I had such a bad headache. I like stopped to get coffee at home.
You tried to eat to feel
I tried
better.
to eat and he looked at me. I was like, all right, I'm leaving. I'm going to Heather's. And he was like, there's the blue jay.
I should probably close the window. I'll do it after the obsessed.
They'll hear it. That's my blue jay friend that loves me.
Jamie gets signs from her mom in spirit through blue jays. And if you just heard that on the podcast, that was her mom being real supportive of us.
Yeah. Woo! But he looked at me and was like, you can't go to Heather's. Like,
right.
What? And I was like, no, I gotta go.
Why?
I gotta do this. And he was like,
yeah.
All right. And I was like, I probably shouldn't go.
No. Of course not.
I literally went to bed for like hours.
But I think, first of all, I think everyone listening will understand what a feat that is, because I think a lot of people have trouble with that.
Right.
But me knowing you, I know how hard that was for you, because you don't ever want to let anybody down.
No.
You'd be like, I'm sorry, I just got shot 4 times.
Right.
I'm bleeding out, but I could probably do like a 50 to 65 minute podcast before I'm dead. So I'll be there.
And it wasn't even the listeners, no offense, that I felt. It was you.
It was me.
I was like, oh, I know Heather really wants to record. Like, we were just getting back at it.
Did you picture me like laying on the floor weeping because you weren't going to come?
No, I pictured your like copious notes sitting somewhere like all alone. Like, well, wait till next week.
The thing that I think, first of all, is really nice is that you trusted me enough to tell me that you weren't feeling well and you needed, and I believe that I Marco Polo'd you, and I was like, duh.
No, you texted me and you were like, that's totally fine. Take care of yourself. And then you Marco Polo'd me. Like, I want you to see my face. I want you to see that I'm really not mad. It's not just the words on the screen. Like, it's really fine. Like, go to bed.
Yes, of course. I would have been more agitated with you if you had dragged yourself here feeling unwell to record because you didn't want me to feel unaccommodated.
Right. And that's what I was going to say, is get yourself some friends who like I knew that you would be mad. Like, I knew you'd be like, what the hell are you doing here? I'd
be like, you dummy. You don't feel well.
Right. Like,
we can record next week.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I can do it, you can do it.
It's hard, but like, it's also good to be able to listen to yourself, because think about, so say you did come. Mm-hmm. How would you have felt about the podcast at the end?
Well, right. I would have been like, I didn't do it. I wasn't like present enough. I didn't do a good enough job.
Right. And like you would have, I know you would have done a good enough job, but you wouldn't have felt good about it. Right. So it's sort of also like saying like, I care enough about this I want to show up at 100.
Right.
So I can't show up at 100.
Exactly.
That little part's great. But then on top of it, especially as a woman, to be like, I think what I need to do is take care of myself instead of the thing I told you I would do.
Right.
So I'm going to have to break that little contract we have of meeting at 9:30 to record today. Like, that's really tough.
And that's hard for, I mean, a lot of people listening, I'm sure, feel the same way, that like it's hard to say no. And, you know, when we talk about doing the work, it's not, it's little things. I mean, they feel big, that felt big in the moment.
Well,
but
because
like,
it is a big thing, but yes.
In the grand scheme of things, like it's little things like that, like being able to say, I got to call out today. I got to use a sick day. I can't, you know, whatever your job is. But like saying that.
I hope it's okay for me to share this part. But like Jamie also one time had her appendix explode in her body and drove her kids to school before bringing herself to the emergency room.
That's true. I'm like, your point is what?
Yeah, you're like, and? Yeah. So
like, I didn't know that it had exploded, but I thought, I was like, I think my appendix may have just like burst.
Yeah. Queen of the deadpan reaction to a big, huge issue. Queen of it.
So I was like, this doesn't feel right. And I was like, so I just text Billy. I'm like, I'm going to drop the kids off. I'm just going to go to the hospital. And he's like, what?
But didn't you also go home and like shower?
No, I took myself the hospital was near like the preschool. So I was like, I'll just put that on the map.
But you also drove the kids without them knowing there was anything wrong because you didn't want to scare them. So you like masked the whole way. Like it's just so, but I pointed out because like, I feel like so many women do stuff like
That's
this.
like how we're taught that we have to behave.
So when you're like, actually, I can't bring you to school today because my appendix is exploding in my body. I'm going to need a ride to the hospital and for someone to take care of my kids.
Right.
It's like, it feels safer sometimes to be like, I'll just be kind of dying.
I'll take care of that. Right.
And that's safer than letting somebody down.
Right. So taking the sick day is actually like,
it's stronger.
From that is a big accomplishment.
It is. Yeah. I mean, there was quite a few years in between. So don't get mad at yourself if you haven't got there yet.
Correct.
But you did it, and I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, it's okay to let someone down. And if it's someone who cares about you, they're actually not let down.
No.
They're just like, okay. Like, literally all I had to do was adjust my schedule slightly.
Right.
That was the big inconvenience that you imagined for me. Yeah. My notes did sit by themselves, but then they were used the next week, so it was totally fine.
Exactly.
All right, I want to talk about perspective for a minute.
Can I add one thing in?
Oh, of course.
I think I should have said it before the break.
Okay.
But I was looking for a place to add it in. But one thing I've learned, because you said in the beginning, and I know one of the people who brought this to your attention was concerned that they're a crier.
Yes.
Like when you get upset, and you instantly want to cry, but if you're like, I'm really mad, I'm not sad, I'm not like a baby,
and you feel like embarrassed because it doesn't look tough or something.
So first of all, like that's a whole issue that we have to deal with. Like emotions are okay.
Yes,
it's okay to have emotions.
They're strong.
It's okay to show your emotions, but also what I've learned lately is that when you start to cry like that, you're actually going nonverbal.
Oh.
So it's a sign, if you're autistic or have ADHD or some other sort of like neurodiversity, right?
Yeah.
But this is for anybody.
Yeah.
It's a sign that your nervous system needs a break.
Yes.
It's turning off. Like how some people dissociate, some people, that's a way of going nonverbal also. Yes. Or like some people will like start, like if they get upset and they scroll, like doom scroll, sometimes that's a sign of going nonverbal.
Yeah, it's a flight in a way. Right? Yeah.
So it's like a crying. So you have to also understand that like if you're having that crying response, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're like this, you're so weak emotionally. It means that your system is saying like, we need a break.
Yes.
Stop.
I mean, all crying is your body going like, we need to remove some of this emotion. Like we're overwhelmed with emotion. Right. We need to release some of it. Right. So if you are getting that signal in those moments, this is where you need to say, if you can, like by yourself sometime, this is important to me, but I'm going to need a few minutes.
I just need to collect myself.
Go cry.
Right.
Good for you.
Right. But it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that your body is literally not talking.
Yes.
And not processing.
Yes.
And we need a moment for that.
And it's okay. Right. It is not, like you said, it's not a sign of weakness.
And also, I'm the type of person that, like, I run my shit through such a harsh filter.
Wait, what?
Right. Shocker. But, like, I would read that as, like, you're being such a baby. Like,
Right. Like you're
But-
being weak is
But
what you're
what
reading.
you would say to me is like, no, actually, you just took charge of that moment.
Yeah.
You just like, you stopped the moment.
Yeah.
You took a beat.
Yeah.
And now you're coming back. Like you actually just took charge of it.
Well, it's the same as going, I don't feel well. I can't do the thing today.
Right.
That's a strong,
Right.
that's autonomy.
Right.
That doesn't work for
Right.
me. That's a boundary. And then you're just doing that in real time with your emotions.
Right. I just
what
put
you
myself
need.
in charge of this situation.
Yes.
I'm calling a pause.
Yes, and if you're doing that so you can come back and be more present or
Right.
more like in control or more whatever in that moment, then you're
Right.
helping both people.
Exactly.
So it's not an act of selfishness either.
Right.
Right.
All right. So proceed. I just want.
No,
I don't think
excellent
people
point.
realize that about crying.
Excellent point. Also, if you go and get like energy work and you start crying or laughing, it's the same thing. Your
Correct.
system's just going like, we need to release some of this. Is all pent up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm somebody who wishes they could cry easier. Like if you show me a commercial or a TV show that something happy is happening, I
Mhm.
weep like a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody does something really well, they perform and it impresses people,
Mhm.
I'm weeping.
Yeah.
But if you're like, here's the saddest fucking thing you've ever heard, it's like
Right.
dry as a goddamn bone.
Oh.
So what
yeah.
I also want people to know that
Right.
if you think those responses are weird too,
Right.
they're not.
No, they're not.
They're all
Right.
based on your own experiences, what feels safe, how you're
How you
dealing
manage
with
things.
emotion.
Yep.
Yes, all of it.
Yep.
Cry later, cry then, cry whenever the fuck you want.
Exactly.
Scream, laugh.
Yep.
I mean, maybe don't laugh maniacally when someone tells you that they're mad at you. Maybe excuse yourself before you do that. But yeah,
Right. Don't
society won't care
Joker
for
laugh. Right. Exactly.
Okay, so I call this the perspective belief.
Yep.
I don't know what other people call it. I'm sure psychologists have studied this before and have
Mhm.
different terminology for it. I'm just going to share mine based on being a weirdo who always analyzes everything that
Okay.
people are doing. Okay. There is a level of belief that people have, again, a spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
about perspective.
Okay.
Okay, so there are a lot of people who are dialed in the way that they think everyone should have the same perspective as them,
Right.
or they assume
Mm-hmm.
that everyone has the same perspective as them all the time.
Okay.
And there are other people like me who assume that no one's ever going to have the same perspective as them.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who are like me tend
Mhm.
to be a little bit more analytical because we're assuming your perspective on anything happening is different than our own.
Okay.
So I'm going to think more about yours.
Okay.
But the other side of the coin is people who think everyone's perspective is the same.
Okay.
So my biggest example of this is when people say, I don't like that movie because when I read the book, I thought it should be like this.
Oh.
Because
okay.
you're
Yep.
assuming that the movie being made should reflect your perspective of the book you imagined and created in your head, like the scenarios as you read words.
Right.
When you were hallucinating looking at a dead tree,
Yes.
you were imagining something.
Right.
And then you see a movie, which all a movie is someone's perspective of a book.
Right.
Okay? And you're upset because it doesn't match yours.
Yeah.
That baffled me as a kid.
Okay.
Okay, so do you remember the book Indian in the Cupboard?
Yes.
I loved that book as a kid. I don't know
Yes.
how old I was. Maybe like, what are you, 10 or 11 when you read that
Yeah.
book, maybe?
I love that book too.
Okay, so we read this book in
Ugh.
school, and then we watched the movie. This is not a big budget movie. This is like a
No, right. 80s.
after school special 80s
Yeah.
version of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very excited to see the movie
Yep.
because I wanted to see how everyone else was imagining this book.
See, I would have been disappointed.
Okay, and so then we go and watch it in class after reading it,
Yeah.
and people are getting upset. They're getting
Interesting.
outraged.
Yep.
That was different. That's not how I saw that character, but
Right.
the book said this.
Their hair's blonde, not brown.
And I'm like, whoa, I get to see someone else's perspective. This is
Interesting.
blowing my mind. This is what I love about a movie,
Right.
is that I'm watching someone else's perspective. Like, even like Hamilton. I love Hamilton. This is someone else's perspective on this moment in history and these
Right.
people.
Yep.
Oh my God, because it has tripped me out since a child. You know that I have like the brain of a philosopher in here.
Right.
A very autistic philosopher.
Well, yeah.
Okay. I'm always going like, the weirdest thing about being human is that we'll never see anything from anyone else's perspective.
Same. Right. Yep.
Right? No matter what, we could be conjoined twins and have the same upbringing, and we won't have the same perspective.
Right.
We'll still see everything different, and that to me is wild. I think about it in the middle of the night. I do.
Know you do.
I like
do.
Literally do, and like I'll write a note about it, and then I'll wake up in the morning and I don't know what that means, but I had some great thought about perspective in the middle of the night. So I'm watching it going like, yes, so cool to watch someone else's perspective.
Right.
But I'm seeing other people are mad because they had the assumption that everyone's perspective should be the same as theirs.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So where you are there, if you feel that way, like everyone should have my perspective and beliefs.
Right.
Then you're going to struggle in conversations to get to a place of peace with another person.
Yeah.
Because you're going to think they know what you know, they feel how you feel, they see everything the same way as you.
Right.
But it is actually completely impossible for them to do that.
Right. Interesting. I think I'm in the middle.
In the middle somewhere?
I think for the most part, my empathy will always push me to try to figure out why someone's feeling something.
As soon as you ask that question, you're starting to shift your own perspective.
Right.
Like to question what theirs is.
Yeah, like that annoys my kids when I'm like, well, they probably thought this. And they're like, no, I want you to be mad at them for me. Well, because I'm like, oh, I'll gladly be mad at them for you, but I want you to understand why you're having experiences with people. Because
you know that information is valuable to getting the outcome you want, is to understand the other person's perspective. If I can figure out your perspective, at least a glimpse of it, I am going to win whatever is happening. I'm going to get my outcome. As soon as I figure out yours, especially if you haven't figured out mine, I'm getting what I want.
Right. But you do that through empathy.
Through the lens of empathy.
Yeah, because you can't see someone else's perspective if you can't empathize with them.
Exactly.
The only place that differs for me is shocking when it comes to like social justice issues. Right. Where there's for me, there's some subjects where there's no black and white.
Like you can't see another perspective.
No. Like you can't say, I can't empathize with a Nazi. Right. Like, so you're wrong.
But there's also, I hear that. But there's also a difference between empathizing with somebody and going, you've been raised and see the world differently than me. Right. And if, let's say you had to negotiate something with a Nazi. Right. If you were trying to speak to them in ways that were going to affect, this would make me change my belief. This is how I see it. Yep. They're never going to concede anything to you.
Well, I'm just calling you and I'm going to get arrested. Okay. I'm going to catch a charge and then
I'll come negotiate from there. But if I don't have to agree with a single thing that you say or believe, but if I need to get something from you, I need to understand your perspective.
Right.
Right. Yes. I need to understand what you're afraid of and what you desire. And as soon as I do that, I understand a lot more about you. Right. But if you're someone who gets really mad at adaptations of books, because it's not how you saw it, you might just want to take a minute to be like, let me think about perspective. Yes. Because it isn't that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that life is going to be a lot less frustrating for you if you start to see the world as everyone's perspectives are different.
Yeah, everything's going to feel like an offense.
Yes. Right. Exactly. Now, along those same lines, you have to remember that your ego has an extreme sense of confirmation bias.
True. Okay. That's a great point. Okay. It really does.
And it really works to confirm good and bad.
That's literally, it's like its job.
Yes.
It's looking for like confirmation of its fears.
It's the part of you that stereotypes people.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily do it to be an asshole. I mean, it's an asshole move to then react based on those stereotypes.
Yes.
I'm not excusing
and believe them.
Right. Exactly. But not to have them. That's what your ego does. Right. Based on the information it has.
Your ego, my ego is forever showing me where people are going to leave me.
Yes, it's confirming that they are.
Look, this person's leaving.
I mean, so much so that you'll take something that is like someone retiring.
I was just going to say that.
Like you're like, of course they're abandoning
hurts my feelings.
Because your ego wants to confirm that bias all the time.
Like, look, people leave. Like, you can't have people forever.
Exactly. Okay. So it also does this with your perspective.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. If I am speaking to somebody in a conversation and I'm making assumptions about them based on let's say I'm speaking to a white man, a middle-aged white man, and I start making assumptions that this man is a misogynist and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
My ego wants to confirm that.
Yeah.
So I'll make you one if I'm not careful.
Correct. Right.
Because that's safer if you fit into the category of how I see the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's easier to manage everything.
No, I'm not doing that, just so you know.
Well.
I mean, I probably wonder it, but I'm not going like, let me confirm this.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, no, I'm not looking, we're not looking to like judge, jury, execution everybody.
No.
But like, it's on my radar.
But you could also do it in a way where it's somebody who you think should know something.
Yeah.
So you believe them
Right.
and you trust them. And that was a mistake because your confirmation bias told you that you should for whatever reason.
Right.
So when you're in those situations too, your ego is going to bring up your deepest insecurity. So if somebody comes to me and says, I'm mad at you, you hurt my feelings, my ego is going to use its confirmation bias to be like, it's because you're a weirdo, Heather, and everyone is going to eventually see that you're too strange and too much for everybody. And anything that they say sounds like that. It doesn't matter. It's like you actually like literally stepped on my toe really hard, and I'm like, I'm still hearing it that way.
But that's how confrontations get out of hand.
Yes.
It's because if you're not aware that those things are being like drudged up from like the darkest depths of your soul, and your ego is looking to like protect you all the time, then something like a quote unquote simple miscommunication can become like an assault to your character.
Yes. Someone could be saying something. So like this thing that you did when you said this thing, it hurt my feelings. And I know that my intention is not never, hardly ever, I'm human, to hurt anyone's feelings.
Right.
I'm too empathic to even, if it happens, as soon as that happens, I'm full of regret. But like, whatever, I am human. But like, it's really rare that my intention is to hurt someone's feelings.
Right.
I mean, I'm much more, what's the Taylor Swift line in Mastermind that I love so much, where she's like, no one would play with me as a little kid.
Oh.
So I like became
always stayed like a step ahead.
So like make it look effortless.
Yes.
Like I'm actually trying to get you to accept me the whole time I'm doing anything.
Yes.
So
Effortless.
it's never going to be like
right.
I'm not doing anything that could cause rejection, at least on like a instinctual level, right? So if that happens and someone's saying this thing that you said offended me and it hurt my feelings, I'm going to, my first thing that my ego is going to bring up is be like, see, it's because you're too much and you're too weird.
Right.
And you didn't manage yourself.
Right.
And look what happened. We knew it.
Right.
We knew it. We told you. You should just stay away from everybody. And they're not saying that.
No, but that's why people get so triggered.
Exactly.
In situations like that, because you're triggering someone's like deepest wound.
Yes.
And if you're not even aware of what your wound is, then you're so easily triggered by other people because you can't manage that.
And your confirmation bias is confirming your insecurities to you.
Right. Where you know that about yourself and you can go, whoa, Heather, like, no one's rejecting me.
Yes.
Like, I'm okay. You're all right. We're just having a conversation.
Yes.
But if you don't know that about yourself,
no, that you're just operating
there.
Handle. Oh, you're operating from all this raw shit all the time. I know because I remember being that way.
Exactly.
We all have been.
Yes.
And it's not that you're better or worse. It's just that it feels like shit all the time there.
It's
and
exhausting.
if you can like shift it, it doesn't.
Right.
The thing is also that like we've been talking about this recently. Like you have to remember that multiple things can be true at the same time. So I'm not in that moment where maybe it looks like I'm not being triggered. I can be being triggered by my rejection, whatever.
Right. Those voices are still talking.
It's still happening. I'm just going, oh, you're here. Interesting. Go right there.
Right.
I got you. And then refocusing.
And we're focusing here.
It's happening, but I don't believe it. It's just it's just a piece of information I've being presented.
Right.
It's no longer the truth.
Yep.
That's the change. That's where you have to remember the confirmation bias.
Exactly.
Now, if you are someone who is self-reliant, you believe it's safer to rely on yourself and be the most autonomous person in every situation that's ever existed, then you also have to know about yourself that you're going to take all this information and need a truth now. Okay?
Yep.
that's where you're going to go like, there's all this stuff going on. I'm just going to have it all be here and I'm going to react the best I can. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to think about it.
Yep.
Okay. If you are someone who thinks that they're not, like everyone else is better off, they know better than me, then in that situation, you're going to discount everything.
Yep.
You're going to say all the things I'm feeling are wrong.
Yeah.
They're not, but that can exist while you experience the thing. Just go, oh, it's happening.
Right.
Okay, I see it. I'll get to you.
It.
I'll get to you later.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's the knowledge. Like, my point is that you're not overcoming it. You're just shifting it from a truth to a piece of information you're being presented.
Right, and you're not letting it take the lead.
Yes. It's like some people will tell me like, I can't be on TikTok because I hear a video and if it's not how I believe, I get like mad. And I'm like, oh, you're just living in this real raw emotional state, probably because of trauma. But like, do you know what I mean? Where you're not then doing the thing where you do something with the information.
Right.
You move it through your system in a different way. Right. You're getting mad at little people in a screen that you don't know, and it's ruining your day.
That's interesting.
Okay?
Yeah.
Right. All right.
Right.
The other thing that I think we need to talk about in this are the triggers. In this concept that I tell people about that they hate so much, but then once they get it, it's helpful. So you're going to hate it, listener, but it's going to help you.
I've probably already hated it in the past.
You hate this so much,
okay,
but you also love it so much. So, okay. If you are being triggered by somebody just existing near you, or somebody, just this person in your life, and they just make you more mad or more upset or more frustrated than everyone else, there's a reason for that you're going to hate.
Yes.
And it's the fact that there's something, it's the mirror concept. There's something about them that they're reflecting back at you that hits you in an insecurity. Yeah. It's an insecurity you have about yourself.
Yeah, the old shadow work.
The old shadow work.
Right. Yep.
God damn it.
Yep.
Okay. So if it's helpful to know what your triggers are.
Yep. Okay.
And it's helpful to be able to go, the hell's this trigger? Because
Right.
new ones can pop up at any time.
Definitely.
It's real annoying.
Definitely.
It's like, oh, I'm good with that trigger. And then all of a sudden you're like, excuse you.
Yeah.
Did you just say this? And suddenly that's apparently offensive to me. Like, it can happen in real time.
Yeah.
But it's those things. Like, there's someone in my life that I've created a lot of boundaries around. So they're not in my life much anymore. Right. But them literally just speaking would start to make me so mad. And I realized that one of the things that they did a lot was fish for compliments.
Oh.
And I used to do that. The reason that I used to fish for compliments is because I was trying to figure out everyone's perspective on me all the time. I actually don't, you know me, I don't actually like to be complimented.
You don't like a compliment.
But like, I felt like if I could say something and then like, this is me as like a teenager, okay? If I could float something out to you about myself and then go like this, I could figure out if you thought it or not.
Interesting.
I didn't actually care if you did or you didn't. I just wanted to figure it out.
Because you couldn't just say like, hey, what do you think about me? Or what do you think about this?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you think that boys think I'm attractive? I'm not going to ask that question. I'm going to tell you a either real or made up story of boys thinking I'm so attractive. And then based on your reaction, see if you think that happened or not.
What could go wrong with that plan?
What could go wrong?
Oh my God.
It's a terrible plan.
It is a terrible, sorry, little Heather, but that's a terrible plan.
Little Heather had fewer tools. And so she was like, let's bounce this shit off of everybody.
Right. Yep.
I mean, there were times where I would just take a truth, because lying always makes me feel like I'm going to vomit. Okay. Unless it's for like to protect somebody. Yep. If it's to like tell a fib, that makes me feel bad. So I would take a truth and like adjust it or like highlight or make something bigger. And to me, I just hit the mic. To me, that didn't seem as lie-ish. So I would float that out to see how it went over. Sort of like a comedian practicing its routine on a room. Like, how's this going to go over? Right. People think this is funny. Right. That's what I was doing. How's this land with this room? Right. And then I was figuring it out. Okay. Yep. So every time, I know you're picturing like little me doing this.
Well, and because I'm also picturing what the other person is thinking, and they're running it through their systems of like, what's Heather trying to say, that she's prettier than I am? Like,
yes, they're taking it their way.
But you didn't know that then. So it's like, it's this comedy of errors. Of
because
mess.
I'm watching them get mad at me.
Right. And you're not realizing why.
And I'm going like, okay, so
nobody thinks I'm
talking about me doing anything good
Right.
makes everybody mad, and nobody thinks I'm pretty, and bringing it up is like,
But it's really none of that.
it's all just based on how that made them feel.
Exactly.
Yes, but like
God.
12, 13-year-old, 14-year-old me
Didn't know.
was just doing social experiments to collect data and didn't realize what was happening. Somehow, I was not diagnosed as autistic back then.
Incredible.
But you can all see it now. I know, because you keep telling me on social media. We got it. So when this person was fishing for compliments,
Right.
it was triggering that little girl.
Yes.
And this shame, because shame is always going to be the thing at the end of the road.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go, why do I keep getting triggered here? Shame's the answer. I mean, look for the rest of the story, but it's always shame.
Yep. Yes.
That also triggers guilt.
Yes.
Welcome to the party.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
She feels shame.
Right.
Like, I still feel ashamed of doing that.
Right.
So when she's doing it, it's making this unhealed thing that I used to do hurt. And now I've healed it enough that I just told everyone on the podcast I did it, because it's just, I get it. I understand why she was doing that.
Right.
So like now when that same person does the compliment fishing, it doesn't bother me as much.
Correct.
So you have to like watch for that stuff.
And if you want another quick example, which I think applies to a lot of people our age, is that for me, a trigger was when my kids would get upset.
Yes.
And I used to be like, I don't really care that they're upset. And then I realized that it was because I was never allowed to be upset as a kid.
Yes.
I always had to be like a good girl. I did I had to perform.
I wasn't allowed to be able to do that. And you are. And it's triggering me because I haven't healed and forgiven everything around that.
Because I'd be like, why do you care? Like, you want your kids to be emotionally competent. You're forever teaching them about that. So why are you getting so triggered by this? And I realized it's because I didn't have that.
Yes.
So I wasn't mad at my kids. I was upset with this part of myself.
But as soon as you figured that out, the trigger lowered. Like, you still feel it a little.
Right.
But you're still not something you enjoy.
Right.
But you're like not like, oh, I'm just reacting this huge way where I feel like shit for some reason.
Right.
Or I'm like suddenly mad at you.
Yep.
It's you understand.
Exactly.
So the more you notice, the more you think through, the more you search for why.
Yep.
That's the work we always talk about. The easier all of this stuff becomes. Okay.
Also helps if you know other people's triggers. I mean, you won't in every confrontation, but if you're dealing with like a friend or a spouse or a coworker and you know their triggers, then...
Right. Well, there's another benefit to doing what I did as a little kid. The people who are still around, I know their triggers because I accidentally was finding them.
Right.
Like sometimes I'd float something out and it went over real well and I was like, okay. And then other times it was like, this person is enraged.
Yes, exactly.
Or this person can't stand my presence.
Note to self.
And so you start being a little information gatherer because I'm literally just being like, I'm the weirdo. This is my story, right? So I'm like 13 and I'm like, literally tripping over the idea of perspective, and no one else can see mine and I can't see theirs, and no matter what, I'll never do it. Doesn't matter how much empathy I have, I'll never get it.
Right.
And they're just like, I just want people to like me.
Exactly.
And I'm like, but don't you care about perspective?
No, they just want to like go. Like,
no. So I'm like, let me conduct my experiment on perspective, your perspective of me.
Right. Exactly.
So it's all understanding those pieces. Okay. We also have to. I know this is getting long. This may end up being 2 episodes. I don't know what's happening, but we're talking about this forever. We'll see.
Well, because like we said at the beginning, is that it's not a 5-step plan.
It's not. It's just
not a 10-step plan. It's something that it's doing the work. It's figuring out what your whole entire self needs and does.
Well, one of the things that, besides perspective, that keeps me up a lot now is that there's so many things like this on how humans operate that are not discussed.
No, exactly.
Anywhere. I've never heard anyone talk about this stuff, which is part of the reason it's hard to think of a title.
Right.
Because I listen to everything. I take all the classes. I read all the books. No one's talking about this. And that,
because it's so intricate and in depth.
But it's frustrating. And it's because it can't be put into like a capitalistic formula to sell.
Exactly.
So we're just discussing it for you to take and like use.
Right.
And that doesn't fit into neat packages or time constraints.
1-hour episodes.
So here we are.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, everybody. Hopefully it fits into Jamie's schedule because she's still here talking. But I trust that you'll tell me if you have to go.
I will tell you if I need to leave.
So the other thing is we have to talk about boundaries, but probably not in the sense of your thinking about boundaries.
Yes.
Boundaries is a popular topic. We have an episode on boundaries.
Yeah, it's been very popular.
It's a great thing to talk about. There's an element of boundaries that people just don't talk about.
That's also something you can't just learn in one step either.
Oh, God, no. No.
Right.
And those are always shifting.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
The thing that people don't talk about with boundaries is that anytime you're interacting with a person you've never interacted before, your whole interaction is boundary negotiation.
Good point.
That's what a date is. That's what a job interview is. That's what meeting someone for the first time for coffee is. That's what's talking to someone at a gathering is.
So well said.
That's what work is.
Right.
The first time
Right.
is
Like mingling. Right.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to look at a relationship from the first date to they've been married 10 years.
Yep.
This is constant boundary negotiation, and then all of a sudden something happens and the boundaries change.
Such a good point.
Right?
Yep.
Where all of a sudden you have expectations of somebody, and then as soon as expectation is involved.
I didn't like that. That wasn't okay.
Or like we're dating and we went on 3 dates, so I don't expect that when my parents invite me to dinner that you'll come. But we've been dating for 3 months, and now I do. But did I talk to you about that? Because I might have just created it.
Correct.
This is how humans are.
Yeah.
But they don't know they are.
Right.
Except I know they are because I've been doing social experiments on them since I was a child.
Right. Exactly.
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And like I say, everything's a negotiation. And when you're first meeting someone, especially, everything's a boundary negotiation.
Right.
Like with you, I don't negotiate boundaries anymore with you.
Right.
I just discuss them.
Yeah.
But you already know mine and I already know yours. So
Right.
I'm operating in them. And if something changes, we're both like, huh?
That's weird.
And we talk about it.
Yeah.
But for a new person, you don't know theirs and they don't know yours.
Right.
All you're doing is figuring that out.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I feel like the more I talk about what I do in the first meeting of someone, the more insane I sound.
No.
But I'm just going to keep going.
No, this is what people want to know.
Okay.
Is like you're telling us what the thoughts are.
These are my formulas,
That
carefully crafted. Not because I'm a genius or a mastermind. I am. But because I never understood it.
Right.
And I wanted to.
And these are the things that are happening to all of us. We just haven't taken the time to like
create a formula and strategy for each one.
Right. Or even like see the pattern.
Right. Exactly.
So you're just explaining that.
I'm good at pattern recognition.
Exactly.
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to look at after I figure out, what your intent, I try to figure out your intention, some clues about what you're looking for from me. I'm going to start to pay attention to the boundaries you have for us talking.
Okay.
Because people set very interesting boundaries, and it depends on your gender, it depends on your age, it depends on a lot of factors. If you come in and start talking to me with 0 boundaries, I'm going to start backing up.
Okay.
Everyone knows that experience where you don't know a person and they're just like, hi, so yesterday I had surgery and you're just like, holy you have no boundaries.
Right.
You are not even looking for mine and you don't have
care.
any.
You don't even care.
You're not.
About my part.
You're so unawares.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the first thing I'm going to do is like, how the hell do I get out of this conversation? I have good tactics for that too. Maybe in another episode.
Right.
But that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And then there are some people who want to give you nothing. Or some people who are just like, look over here at this shiny thing. And you're like, what the hell's over there? Right. Like, everyone's kind of showing you that.
Yeah.
So pay attention in the conversation with someone, even if it's a confrontation, even if it's something that's uncomfortable. What are the boundaries they're laying out for you? Because they're going to lay them. They're not going to say them like, here are my boundaries.
Well, because they don't even know they're doing that.
No. They don't.
But they're doing it.
No.
You're doing it, even if you don't know you're doing it.
Right. Like some people will have a boundary where they'll call you. Like that in itself is a boundary. Like I could meet with you in person, but that's too hard. So I'm going to call you.
Okay.
Or to me, a boundary that a lot of people use in a not great way is to just comment on social media.
Ugh. Yeah.
Because there's so much space in between us that like.
It's like the Wild West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But like, would you say that to my face?
Never.
Right. Like,
Right.
So you're always kind of looking at this. So if you're in a conversation with someone and you're gathering that pause and you're gathering the information, you're trying to practice this stuff, what boundaries have they laid out for you? Where do they say like, that was over the line?
Yep.
That's literally a boundary sentence.
Or do they just start to shut down? Like, do you bring the conversation somewhere and then they start to
Yes.
shut down? Then
Yes.
that's a boundary. They don't know they're setting it, but you can read it.
Pay attention.
Right.
Even if the misdirect is people's favorite thing, and if you pay attention, you'll see the boundary.
Right.
Like if you're like, oh, we're talking and they bring up something like, oh yeah, I'm married and and then you ask a question about their marriage and they do a very short answer and change the subject. They've just laid a boundary for you that they don't want to talk about
it. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But then somebody will be like, oh wait, go back to the marriage. I see that in conversations all the time. I mean, for me, I'm like, ooh, this is going to be interesting.
You're like, they don't want you to go back.
But yes, I'm not going to go back.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to mastermind a different way another time to figure out why.
Yes.
Because I'm now curious.
Exactly.
But I'm not. If I'm trying to connect with you, I'm
not going to push.
I'm going to respect it.
Right. Right.
Boundaries are everywhere, everybody.
Right.
Just pay attention. Okay. Someone you know versus someone you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people know this thing, and this is one of those times where this happens all the time, where I say to Jamie, do people know this? And when I ask that question, I would say it's like maybe you would disagree, it's like a 70-30 response of like, no, Heather, nobody knows that, and 30%, like, I think people know that, but maybe not the way you're framing it.
Yes.
Those are usually the answers I
agree.
get. Okay. What you need from somebody you know is different than what you need from somebody you don't know. And do you know what you need from someone you don't know?
Do people know that there's a difference?
Yeah. Do you know that every time you meet a new person, there's something you need from them, or else you would never interact?
No.
Okay. Do you understand what I mean? I can explain this further. Okay.
Explain it further.
Okay. So if the people you have in your life that you know, you have already established what you need and what you get from them and how you get it.
Right.
And they have done the same for you.
Yep.
But a brand new person, if you're in a situation where you're meeting new people, okay, you need something else from a new person.
Okay.
And it's something you want reflected.
Okay.
I want acceptance. Accept me for who I am.
Right.
And whatever I'm doing in that first meeting is a tap dance of what you seem to like and what you don't about me.
Okay.
And then putting stuff in the front that I notice a good reaction to. And I'm trying to connect with you because connection is one of my human needs for sure. But there's a deeper need in me to confirm that I'm not going to be rejected.
Yep.
Okay. So I am going to be looking for acceptance from a new person. I want acceptance. As soon as somebody makes some sort of comment about accepting me, I relax.
Okay, I don't think people know that they're doing that or that that's happening now.
Okay.
I mean, it makes tons of sense when you say it, but I am not aware.
Okay.
I'm not aware that I do that.
Okay. Every human being ever in the history of every interaction ever is doing this.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, that makes sense.
Again, people think of humans, they're like, humans are so selfish. But like, again, you only have your own perspective and you can only really, truly feel your own feelings. You can see how someone else is reacting and through your own perspective feel about it, how they might feel, depending on how dialed into empathy you are on that spectrum or not.
Right.
But you can't actually ever have the same perspective as somebody.
Right.
I sound like a broken record.
But selfish is like one of those words, like you said, negotiate, and I've said in other episodes, like manipulate.
Yes.
That like, in and of themselves, they're not negative. They can be used negatively. They've been given a negative connotation, but like those aren't, like, negotiating isn't a bad thing. Manipulating isn't a bad thing if you're doing it like with good intentions.
I mean, intention is the key here. Exactly.
Same with like being selfish. Like we're humans. We have our own experience. Like we have to be selfish.
I think once you accept that, and once you accept that everything is a negotiation, everything is a manipulation, everything is I'm trying to feel away and you're trying to feel away.
Right.
It gets
how
easier.
do we meet in the middle of those two feelings?
Yes.
Right.
I mean, it's very easy to confirm to someone how they want to feel. We talked about this in the Human Desires episode. If you haven't listened to it, like people say them right away.
Right.
So if you can go like, oh, they need this.
Right.
And you can give it to them, you're going to actually have all the other stuff start to drop and get to connect with the person. But until you do that, you won't actually connect.
Well, and that's why you don't get along with certain people, because those two needs
don't match.
They don't match. They'll never like meet in the middle. But like when you are friends with someone, it's because you can meet those needs for each other.
Yeah, and I think that's what any bonds in humans are,
Right.
or like, what are your needs, what are mine? We're both going to work to
Right.
help each other in those. And the more the other person prioritizes the other person's feelings,
Yep.
and if it's mutual, the stronger the relationship is.
Right.
But I mean, how many relationships, I'm thinking romantic relationships, do you see where that's not an even playing field?
Right. Because you're attracted to someone probably sexually.
Yes.
But then when you start to try to meet those needs,
yes,
you can't go any further with it.
Yes. So this is constantly happening.
Right.
It's a constant thing that
Yeah.
people don't look at. It's because you're desiring to feel a certain way.
Right.
And you're also taking in confirmation bias. You're also taking in your ego's biggest fear about yourself. So your desires and fears are at the forefront of every conversation, confrontation or not. Like just meeting someone new, it's raw and at the front because this person has not confirmed or denied the ways you want to be seen in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
So what you are getting from your friend, from your family, from your coworkers, that you've already established it. Right? The reason that some people automatically don't like you because they think you're intimidating or snobby or mean or whatever is because you're not reflecting to them the thing that they want to feel.
They want to see or feel. Right.
Or their insecurity is blocking it.
Right.
Okay. So when someone says to me, oh my God, I'm so intimidated by your confidence. I mean, first of all, it's hard for me not to launch into the fact that I don't understand even the word confidence doesn't even make sense. Same as when someone says love your body.
Right.
What? Why?
Right.
You're not telling me to love my brain. You're not telling me to love my soul or my emotions.
Right.
Tell me to love my what? Huh?
Right.
Have self-worth. Why?
Right.
None of those concepts make any sense.
Yes.
Tangent, I will try to avoid.
Right.
But like it's the same thing. It's like, well, I'm perceiving you that way. And because I have an insecurity that I'm not perceived that way, it makes me irritated with you because you're triggering. You're doing the mirror thing to me. And because I'm unhealed and I'm not doing any work, I'm just operating in that raw state all the time.
Or because I've felt confident and been criticized for it.
Yes.
I now resent that in you.
Because I didn't heal it. I didn't work through it.
Right.
Exactly right. So it's just understanding that. It's knowing that. So if you are in the conversation, you want to get to know someone, you want to connect with them, you want to get something from them, which is the only reason that you're ever in a conversation. Ever.
Right.
I don't care if you're like, no, I wanted to talk to the barista at the coffee shop and compliment her shirt. No, you wanted to feel good you wanted to feel like a good person.
It made you feel good to make someone else feel good.
Yeah, that's great. But it's not a selfless act.
Correct.
There are no selfless acts.
Because we are selfish.
We're human. You can't be a human and do a selfless act. You die for somebody. Oh my God, it's a selfless act. No, it wasn't.
Right. Because you thought it was the right thing for you to do.
Yeah, you died for someone you love because you didn't want to exist in a world where they didn't exist. That was for you. You can't separate it.
Yep.
It's still admirable.
Yep.
It's still wonderful to go give people compliments. I do that as much as I possibly can, but it isn't an unselfish act.
Right.
Everything is a selfish act. But again, if you're looking at that and you're understanding that, you're going to get to somebody better. If you come in hot at me and I can figure out your human desires and your human fears, the forefront ones, you're going to be calm in 5 seconds. So it's the same thing. Like if someone's coming in, like listen to what they're saying and how they're saying it. If someone is talking to you in a very quiet, hushed tone, or if someone is yelling, there are different needs at the front.
Yes.
Just that information is helpful.
Good point. Excellent.
It's all information.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to end this with just a sentiment.
Okay.
But wait, do you have anything you want to add before I give a sentiment at the end here? Okay.
No, I was just going to say that leave it to the intuitive girls to have someone ask a question and us turn it into an episode.
Well, because I
love it.
But it is not answerable in less than, what is it, an hour and a half? I can't answer it that quickly.
Exactly.
At least I can't.
No, it can't be answered that easily.
Okay. And I can't direct you anywhere because no one's talked about it before that I could find anywhere. Okay.
No, I agree.
All right. So I'm going to leave you with a mantra for all the empaths because if you listened all the way, you are so empathic.
Impatient.
Okay. Other people's feelings, although you can read them and figure them out, are not your problem.
Ouch.
I know, but it's true.
It's so hard. I know it's true, but it's so hard to learn that.
If someone else near you is upset, it is not your problem because you sensed their upsetness or because they told you they were upset. It is not your problem to solve. It's theirs. If you would like to aid them in it, you can. That's really nice. But you actually can't solve it. You're not equipped because you can't have the same perspective. You'll never be able to do it. I have tried to do the work for people.
I know.
So have you.
I know.
It doesn't work.
I know.
It never will.
I know. And if you feel like you can't let that go, because for me that was so hard to let that go, that's your work to do.
Yeah.
That was my work to do. It was like, why do I feel like I have to be so accommodating? Why do I feel like I have to fix people? Why do I feel like other people can't manage their own emotions?
Yeah.
Those are deep dives.
Yeah.
And I now know the answers to most of those questions, or at least to whatever extent I'm able to now.
I mean, if you're asking those questions, because I bet a lot of people are relating to that, what is going on is that because you didn't feel like you had enough people showing up to do that for you.
Right.
And
but we also live in a society where we're told that women are supposed to do that for people. Like, it's layered.
Your
so
value
many layers,
is connected to doing that. I am a good person if.
Right.
And it's like, this is why self-worth makes no sense, and I will not teach it. Or when someone says confidence, I'm like, what
we're
do
all
you
worthy,
mean?
right? We're
You're
all
already
worthy.
here. You already earned a spot if you're going to look at it that way. You're here. People who are really great people don't get the best things. In fact, the people who are the most giving, the ones I look around and see are usually the ones with the least amount of things.
Right.
The greedy people have more things.
True.
This is not the ideal plane where that stuff happens. The rules are not that way here, everybody. Trust me.
Not this lifetime.
I spent the first 20 years of my life trying to figure out why that wasn't the case.
Right.
And once I finally was like, oh, it's not fair here.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be.
What you told me was the way to be safe in this world.
Right.
Patriarchal religion, school, all kinds of behavioral conditioning. Like
capitalism. Right.
You were all lying.
Yeah.
That's how greedy people stay greedy.
Exactly.
And good, caring, kind people often stay depleted.
Exactly.
It's because they become martyrs and they're stuck, right? So this is the deep dark hole thing, right? Like if you see someone at the bottom of a deep dark hole, if you're a super empath, welcome to the club. Your instinct is to go, let me get in the deep dark hole with you so you're not by yourself in the deep dark hole. Oh my God. And now there's just two people in a hole and no one's getting out because the lowest vibe energy wins.
Right.
Like it's going to take you in.
Yep.
Right. But if you stay out of the hole and you're like, oh my God, someone's in a hole. Let me get help. Let me get some tools to help you get out of the hole.
Right.
Let me shout some stuff down to you while you're in the hole. Let me just let you know I'm not leaving you. You're in the hole, but I'm still here.
Right.
That's going to help the person out of the hole.
Exactly.
Got to remember that.
Different outcomes.
Yes. Other people's feelings are not our problems. It's information that we can choose what to do with.
Yep.
Okay.
Love it.
I need like a huge coffee now. Let's go do that.
Blueberry maple.
Okay.